press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
So primary segment is the segment in which new securities are created. One of the way in which new securities are created is by offering shares to the public at large. Now, when you offer shares to public at large, you have to go through what is known as a book building process. So in this episode, we are going to discuss what exactly do we mean by a book building process. So let's discuss the point of book building. See, we will understand book building as a process of price discovery. Yes. See, in the earlier days when the book building process was not there, companies used to come out with a fixed priced issue. So we used to call it as a fixed priced issue. Fixed priced issue means the company will tell its potential investors that, see, we are offering our shares at a particular price. So let us say your particular price is, let's say, rupees 1500. So you are planning to sell your shares at 1500. So here what happens is investor does not have any choice. You have to compulsorily buy the share from the company, or instead of buying the share also, you have to compulsorily apply for the share at a fixed price of 1500. Now, so many a times the issue will get oversubscribed. And then the company would realize that if the company had set a price higher than 1500, then perhaps even at that price also it could have offered its shares. So that's where the SEBI introduced a book building process. As I said, it is a process of price discovery. Here what happens is you are offering your shares at a particular price band. You are telling your potential investors that, see, this is the price band within which we are ready to offer our shares. Different investors can bid for the shares at different price. And once the issue is coming to an end, the company can then determine what is the weighted average price at which it can ultimately issue its shares. So in a book building process, as I said, you will get a price discovery. As I said, there will be a price bend. So if the demand for your shares is less, then investors will bid at a lower price. If the demand for your shares is on a higher side, investors will bid at a higher price. And accordingly, you will be able to measure that what is the best price at which the shares can be offered. As I said, it is a price bend. Let us try to understand this further. So what happens over here is we will offer our shares within a price bend. When you say it is a price bend, it will have a lower price. It will also have an upper price, right? This lower price will be understood as the floor price, while the upper price will be understood as the ceiling price. So it's a price band. And once I have decided the price band, no investor can apply for the shares at a price which is below the floor price. Similarly, no one can bid for the shares at a price which is above the ceiling price. That's the reason we are using the word price bend, right? So let us say you are interested in this particular share. Let's say you are an investor, you want to apply for the shares, then you have to apply for the shares within this price band. That's what I was saying. If your company is not that popular, if your company's business prospects perhaps are not that good, it's quite possible that investors are still interested in your shares, but they will bid at the lower range. They will bid at the floor price. Many a times the company may be really good, but the capital market conditions are not conducive. So in that kind of a situation also, investors may not be interested in spending too much of their money. and they may bid for the shares at the lower price band, and that is at the floor price. But what if the investors are really waiting for you to come up with your public offer? In that particular situation, the investors may bid at a higher price. More and more investors may bid at the ceiling price. And in that particular situation, you will be ultimately be able to price your issue of shares at a higher price. This entire process can also be compared to the bidding process in an auction. I'm not too sure whether you have been a part of any auction, but I'm quite confident that you must have seen an auction, maybe in some movie or maybe in some TV serial. What do you say? If you have watched any of those regular TV serials, the Hindi TV serials, quite possible that you might have seen an auction process. Or even in a movie also, you may have seen an auction process. This book building is very similar. I will not use the word same. I'll say it will be similar. Why similar? Because in an auction process, there will never be any ceiling price. There will be only a floor price, or we can say a reserve price. See, a floor price is necessary, a minimum price is necessary. For instance, let us say as a company, I'm offering the shares and I do not mention the floor price. Tell me what will happen? In a book building process, I'm asking the investor that at what price are you ready to buy my share? And let us say I don't mention any lower limit. Tell me what will happen in that case. Tell me what will happen. Obviously, the investor will be like, okay, you don't tell me the lower price. I want the share free of cost, isn't it? This is what may happen. That is the reason a floor price is necessary. Let's assume for a moment that a particular company has decided the floor price to be rupees, let us say 1000. In other words, you cannot bid for the share of my company at a price below 1000. Minimum of minimum 1000 is required. That's exactly what happens in a typical auctioning process. Try to recall any auctioning process that you might have seen on some TV serial, or maybe in some web series, or maybe in some movie, right? They are planning to auction something. Let us say they are planning to auction a house. So it will start with a minimum price. So maybe there will be an auctioneer. That person, the person is governing the entire auction. That person starts, let us say, with a reserve price of 10 crores. And then you know what happens, right? If it is a typical serial that you have seen, there will be different people. They are raising their hands and they are increasing the bid. I hope you are able to recall it, right? 10 crores, then someone is bidding for 15 crores, someone is bidding for 20 crores, and that person is standing there with a hammer, isn't it? He'll say 20 crores one, 20 crores two, and then all of a sudden there might be some another bid. And let us say it is 25 crores now, 30 crores now. If you have seen any of these Indian TV serials, then there will always be a little bit of melodrama as well. Tell me, what will that melodrama really be? What do you say? So it's almost getting completed. The auction is almost getting completed. Let us say 40 crores one, 40 crores two, and then all of a sudden from the back, someone shouts 70 crores, isn't it? And that's what I was saying. It will be a very melodramatic scene, and everyone's heads are turning that who exactly is this new entrant? And then that person is revealing himself or herself, and a lot of melodramatic music will be played, very heavy music then played. This is what is a typical Indian scenario of an auction. That's what I was saying here. It is very similar, but what is different is that in a book building process there is also a selling price. Selling price is never there in an auction. In an auction, there will be only a floor price. And then whoever bids the highest, that person will be in a position to buy that particular piece of art, or will be able to buy that particular house, let us say. Whatever is getting auctioned, the person who bids the highest will take away that particular item. But then we don't want such a situation to happen on a stock market. For example, let us say we have a book building process in India where you have to simply suggest the floor price, but not the ceiling price. Tell me what will happen in that kind of a situation. Think for a moment that there is no ceiling price. What will happen then? People who are rich, people who are wealthy, people who have all the resources, they will corner away all the shares. Don't you really feel like that? Think about even an IPL auction. Forget about all the other auctions that I discussed earlier. I'm quite confident that you might have watched an IPL auction. Tell me, different players been bidded. Again, similar process. There will be what we call as a floor price or a reserve price, right? So a player has a particular reserve price. And then you must have seen in an IPL auction on a particular table, right? Certain decision makers of different teams are sitting there doing their discussion and they are bidding for the different players. And they will be even increasing their bids. And accordingly, they want to develop or they want to form a really balanced team. I'm not too sure whether you know this or not, but even in an IPL auction also, there is a maximum amount of money that can be spent by a particular team. Originally, when this idea of auction was conceived by Lalit Modi, there was no concept of maximum money that can be spent. In an IPL auction, it was decided that you can spend as much of money as possible and you can build your team. Initially, no one had these problems. But you know what happened? Mukesh Ambani announced that I also want to have my own team. That's where all the other people started complaining. Till that point of time, there was no maximum money that can be spent. But the moment Mukesh Ambani decided that I also want to have a team in IPL, the other bidders were now worried. You can also understand now. Let us say there is no maximum amount that can be spent in forming a team. Tell me, what will a person like Mukesh Ambani do with all the resources at his hand? Don't you feel he will bid the highest and take away all the best players? Don't you feel he will form a team which is simply unbeatable? That's where the other bidders complained. They said that now there has to be a maximum amount. And that's how a final maximum amount was decided. That this is the maximum sum of money. They call it as purse amount. This is the total purse money that can be spent when you are forming or bidding for an IPL team. So that's the same thing that we require in India also. If we simply say that this is a pure auctioning process where a company can only announce the lower price, people with all the resources will corner away the shares. People like you and me who have limited resources, but we want to grow our money in the primary market, we will be left out because there's only a floor price and no ceiling price. So I personally believe SEBI has done the right thing. There has to be a ceiling price so that there is a level playing field, isn't it? People with lot of resources and people with limited resources. Everyone can bid only at a particular higher price. So that's what we will call as the ceiling price. Now you may wonder that isn't it possible for a company to game even this situation also? For example, let us say the company in our example has decided the floor price to be rupees 1000. But let us say that company decides that no, my selling price will be 1 lakh. Minimum you have to pay me 1000 and maximum you have to pay me 1 lakh. Again, what will happen? People who have the resources will take away all the advantage over here. Because how will I bid with limited resources at a selling price of 1 lakh? Here also, there has been a very thoughtful development of the entire process, right? The difference between the selling price and the floor price, understand this thing. The difference between the two, the difference between the selling price and the floor price. It cannot exceed 20%. This is what has been suggested. It should not exceed 20%. So if your floor price is 1,000, the maximum that your selling price can be, it will be 1,000 plus 20%. So the maximum selling price that I can have is not 1 lakh or anything that comes to your mind. Okay, the maximum selling price will be 1,200. So this is the range within which you can now have your price bend. How will I now take advantage of the book building process? Okay, let's understand that also. So as we said, the selling price will be 1,200 and the floor price is going to be 1,000. Now what I can do as a small investor is I can bid for shares at different prices. Yes. So let us say I can, when I'm applying for the shares, I can say something like this. Right, I can suggest what will be the number of shares and what will be my bid price. This is what I can say. I can tell, I can put in my application form that 10 shares I want at 1,000. I can then say 5 shares I want at, let us say, 1,100. And I can also say that 15 shares is what I want to have at 1,200. So I can place different bids at different prices. This is how I can participate in the book building process. This is what I will do. This is what other investors will also do. And finally, what the company will do is the company will calculate the weighted average price. Right. So the company is inviting bids from the public at large. The company is inviting bids from the qualified institutional bidders. The company is also inviting bids from high net worth individuals. Everyone will bid what are the number of shares that they want to apply for and at what price they are ready to buy. Ultimately, as I said, a simple weighted average is required to be determined. Let us assume for a moment that the entire book building process gets completed and finally a weighted average price is calculated. So I'll work out a weighted average price. Let's assume for a moment that the weighted average price is turning out to be 1175. So, considering all the bids for the different number of shares, I hope you know how a weighted average will be calculated. The number of shares bidded will be multiplied by the price at which it has been bidded. And on the basis of that, the weighted average price will be determined. For simplicity, let's assume that the weighted average price is 1175. Now, the company has to now decide what will be its final issue price. Either the final issue price is the weighted average price or something slightly lower than that. Let's assume for a moment that the company decides that 1170 is the final issue price. Company decides to price its issue slightly lower than the weighted average price. So let us say it decides it is 1170. So what will happen now to your bid? Any bid which is at a price below 1170 will be rejected. So you had initially bidded for 10 shares at 1,000, rejected. 5 shares at 1,100, rejected. 15 shares at 1,200, that will be accepted. Yes, this does not mean that these 15 shares will be issued to you at 1,200. No, these 15 shares will be issued to you at 1170 because that is the final price. You may wonder that I had already applied for these shares and I've already paid the share application money. What about it? Do not worry. That money will be returned back to you. The company will refund whatever extra money that it has received from its investors. So, yes, today when I will apply the shares, I will be making the payments, or rather than I will be blocking the payments. Nowadays, we know that there is a system where you can block your savings account for the total amount of money that is payable for the purpose of the share issue. So what this means is the ultimate debit that will happen in your bank account will be only to the extent of 15 shares bid which has been accepted, and that too at 1170. So 15 shares into 1170, whatever is that amount, that is the amount which is going to get debited in your savings account. And in case if you have already made an advance payment, do not worry. Whatever extra money you have paid, that will be refunded back to you by the company. Now, again, whenever a company is coming up with a book building process, there are certain allotments which are normally made by a company. I'd like to discuss that point also. We are still discussing about the book building process. Now, what happens in the book building process is there are three major participants. One is qualified institutional bidders. I'm using the short form QIB, qualified institutional bidders. Then just a second. Yeah, qualified institutional bidders, and then high net worth individuals, and then retail investors. So in a book building process, whatever is the total amount of money which is ultimately going to be accepted by the company on the basis of which shares are going to be issued, there shall be certain allocations that shall be made. So certain proportion of the book building process, or rather I will say certain proportion of the entire public offer of shares is reserved for qualified institutional bidders, some portion is reserved for high net worth individuals, and some portion is reserved for retail investors. Let's see in details how exactly this is done. Yes, to the qualified institutional bidders, around 50% is reserved. High net worth individuals, it is around 15%. And retail investors, it is 35%. Qualified institutional bidders are nothing but mutual funds, pension funds, foreign institutional investors who are really interested in subscribing, or rather, I'll say applying to the public offer. So 50% is reserved for them. High net worth individuals. High net worth individuals are those individuals in India. We have a rough definition. High net worth individuals are those individuals who have net assets of 7 crores or more. We can consider them as high net worth individuals. Around 15% of the issue is reserved for them. And finally, people like you and me, okay? People like you and me, we fall in the category of retail investors. So around 35% is reserved for them. But yes, many a times it is possible that qualified institutional bidders, there can be oversubscription over here. Very much possible that for retail investors, there may be under subscription. Possible. Such kinds of things are possible. So in such a situation, can I adjust the oversubscription in one category and undersubscription in other category? Is it possible? The answer is yes, it is possible. So oversubscription in one particular place, undersubscription at some another category, that can be done. So this adjustment is possible. So maybe when the entire issue gets completed, the percentages may be slightly different. It's possible. But in the ideal situation, around 50% is reserved for qualified institutional bidders, around 15% to high net worth individuals, and people like you and me. Yes, we will fall in the retail investor category. Around 35% of the issue is initially reserved for us. So in case if there is a situation where there is oversubscription over here, you are assured that you will definitely get 35% of the total shares that are going to be issued by the company. So basically, we are in a position to now understand the concept of book building process that much better.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.